Yes, my name is Sunita Kragbe. I'm founder and CEO of Basecamp Initiative. And today, since we're addressing the topic of creative etiquettes, I'm here to discuss how to be a valuable creative. In the first place, I do believe we need to define the term valuable. So, textbook definition would be something that is valuable or someone that is of value, is useful, important, worth a great deal of money. Let's not forget the money aspects, okay? So, when talking about creativity, many make reference to soft skills and hard skills. So, with regards to soft skills, we have the technical knowledge acquired through a job or through education. And hard skills would be the abilities applied in a job. So being maybe being attentive, being organized, being disciplined, and so on and so forth. So when making reference to being a valuable creative, there are three, okay, per se, there would be three categories we need to look at. So we have the creative process itself, we have creative attributes, and we have the creative culture. So those are the three topics I would like to address today. The creative process makes reference to the stages a creative goes through when working on a piece or taking in a brief from a client. The creative attributes are personality traits or character traits that a creative should have or should exhibit in order to be a valuable creative. And the creative culture is the routine a creative needs to embed in his lifestyle in order to bring value to the market or value to the table. Okay, so let's take it one step at a time. Going back to the creative process. Usually, when a client approaches you for a request, be it a design request or videography production, photography production, the first step, the most important step, is to establish your worth. Sorry. So, in order to establish your worth, you need to be able to display what you've done in the past, in terms of the pieces you have crafted, produced, and so on and so forth. So, the ideal thing would be to share your portfolio with the client of interest in order to ascertain credibility. Okay? Now, once you've ascertained credibility, you issue a quote and preferably an agreement with mild terms and conditions so the client understands what he's dealing with and how much the service is going to cost. Should you go ahead and issue the quotes from the first contact, it's advisable not to skip the step of sharing your portfolio because you need to ascertain credibility. Usually, pricing is associated with value in terms of what you can offer. Hence, the reason why I do recommend sharing the portfolio in the first place. The next step, once both parties have agreed on the rates and the terms and conditions, would be to develop a brief. And the brief could be a questionnaire that you've already crafted, that you have in your database that you share with the client, or the clients could be the one sending the brief your way, and you would revise it slightly to meet the standards of your company. However, there needs to be a brief. If there is no brief, it's very difficult to define the thread or the line, the journey from start to finish that you should be following as a creative. The brief also allows you to be specific towards what you're supposed to deliver, what the client requires, what the client's preferences are. And, should anything fire back in the later stages of the creative journey, you can always refer back to the brief and pinpoint to the client that this is what we had agreed on initially, this is what you requested for, hence the reason why we delivered it this way. What's also very important is once you've developed a brief, you need to question the brief. This is one of the most important things that I learned throughout my career as a creative, that at times we do have clients that will bring forth a request, and we jump straight in there and we start brainstorming and crafting, and before we realize, like, we're completely, skewed from what the original intent was. From experience, I've noticed that there are circumstances where clients actually want A, but what would be better for the product they are marketing or the service they are marketing is actually B. That's why you need to question the brief. So questioning the brief means collecting the data gathered from the client and actually, let me say, playing the devil's advocate on the different topics of interest in the brief to see if you do not need to provide the client with a counter brief that is more relevant to their need or the request at hand. So the next step is to have a brainstorming culture. Again, once you get the brief, don't jump right into it and start crafting. People have different ways of getting inspired. What works with me might not work with you or could work with you. And there are different ways to brainstorm. At times, most people get inspired by their environment. Most creatives feed off of the environment. So it is quite recommended to partake in all kinds of conversations with peers, all kinds of leisure activities that could spark an idea in your right brain. And also go through specific exercises, maybe like mind mapping, for example, which is a very familiar exercise we used to do back in school, but we actually take for granted today. I've done quite a couple of sessions with some members in my hub whereby we use the mind mapping technique to be able to to fully flesh out a concept, starting from one word and being able to flesh it out completely into an advertising campaign. So an example of a brainstorming culture would be mind mapping. Again, once you mind map, whatever tool you use to be able to develop a brainstorming culture, the next step is to flesh out the idea. Yes, you do have an idea, but how does that idea apply to the different channels you're going to use? How does that idea reflect on the target audience? How is the target audience going to engage with the idea? How are we going to execute the idea? All that is fleshing out the idea. Then you need to test it, because it's all good recommending things to the client, but if you do not test it, you might not actually realize the impact your concept has on the target audience. So testing is very important because perception changes from one individual to another based on cultural references, background, the way they were brought up, the environment, and so on and so forth. So testing is very important. It might actually bring you to changing the concept slightly or revising it. Now, when you're done, you package all this into, the best way to package your work would be into a presentation whereby you show the step-by-step evolution of from the brief all the way to how you fleshed out the concept, and you need to be able to articulate your ideas. So today everything is digital, so we would usually email the presentation to the client, but there's nothing like human interaction. So I would always recommend that you actually do present your work face to face with the client if you do get an opportunity to do so, and you articulate your ideas, because there's always translation when it comes to text and messaging and so on and so forth. A few things could be lost in translation, but if you're there to actually articulate your ideas, defend your work, then it might be better assimilated by the client. And never forget, the delivery of qualitative work is very important, because you need to set the bar. Once you've set the bar for yourself, you will always deliver based on the standard you would like to project in your portfolio. There's one thing I've always said to the designers I work with is, never ever bring me work that you will not be proud to present in your portfolio. We tend to do things for delivery purposes, or because the client asked for this set of work. Meanwhile, we could deliver more than the client requested for. So I have this principle where I always deliver more than the client requested for. It creates loyalty. It makes the client come back for additional services, and it also shows your worth. So again, I would recommend to you guys as well to never deliver a piece that you would not be proud to put in your portfolio. And the last thing with regards to the creative process would be delivering ahead of time. I know a lot of people that struggle with timelines. And clients might not necessarily voice their concerns when they're done working with you, but they might not come back to you because they feel that you do not meet timelines. So it's very important there are different ways to establish client loyalty and establish trust. There's customer service, there's the delivery, the quality of the delivery of when it comes to the work, and there's also timelines. So with regards to timelines, always give yourself time and contingency in case things go wrong. So say you need to, initially when you've prepped the quote and the agreement for the client, you need to establish how long the crafting process, the brainstorming process, and the delivery process would take. Should you agree to 2 weeks, for example, make sure that your team or you personally make sure that you can actually wrap up the work under 2 weeks so you can deliver before time, just to be able to impress the client so that they come back to you. Now, another thing, if you do work with a team and you're a lead of a team, one trick that I use, which I'm going to share with you right now, is, and I apologize to my designers right away, is that should the work be, should we need to hand in the work under a week, so 7 working days, I usually tell my team that we need to hand in the work within 4 to 5 days to make sure that they do deliver, to make sure that I do have an additional 3 days to be able to, revise things, add a few touches left and right if needed, and also deliver ahead of time to guarantee client loyalty. So that's about it for the creative process. At times you might skip a couple of steps, at times you might go through all the steps, but it is very important to have a process as a creative. So when it comes to the creative attributes, now that we've dealt with the process itself, a valuable creative has good communication skills. You need to be eloquent, you need to be able to communicate your ideas properly, be able to ask the right questions to get a concise brief in the first place, and you need to be able to convince the client that the route you've taken or the concept you've proposed is actually the perfect one for the topic at hand. You need to have networking skills. It's very difficult for a creative to actually go up the corporate ladder or to evolve and grow if they're overly introverted. There needs to be some level of, like an extrovert gene in there, that allows you to interact with people, network with them, socialize with them, feed off of them, learn from them, grow your portfolio, grow your partnerships, grow your connections. So networking in 2020, let me even say 2018, has been a very big component of our lifestyles in order to be able to get more clients and grow our portfolios. You need to be assertive, very assertive. There is no, so being a creative involves crafting and creating, but it also involves some level of marketing because you need to be able to sell your ideas, obviously. So whether you have formal marketing training or not, you need to be able to sell your concept. It's as simple as that. If you're not assertive enough, and the client feels like you're a bit like unsure about what you're proposing, or you're just delivering for the sake of delivering, then you've defeated the purpose. So assertiveness involves being confident about your work, your worth, and also what you are delivering. The next attribute I would like to look at is critical thinking. I do lecture, and I always include an element of creative thinking in the sessions that I give out during my lectures. And I remember when I was in training, when I was in school a couple years back, we did a session where we actually, our lecturer put out a couple of pieces, a couple of artworks that we were supposed to criticize, and criticize with very pertinent vocabulary, and also pinpoint the mistakes and how the creative could have done better and so on. And today, this exercise trained my eye to pinpoint and spot mistakes in pieces, mistakes in video productions, mistakes in photography, when it comes to framing, when it comes to lighting, to grading, and so on and so forth. Mistakes in art pieces as well. So if you can think critically, you will be able to pinpoint the don'ts so that when you are actually crafting, you apply the do's. Hope that makes sense. So let's talk about problem solving. It's very important to be problem solving oriented. Every brief that is presented to you usually has a problem solving component. At times, it's purely for promotional marketing purposes, but you could still find a slight context issue, or what we call attention, to be able to outline the solution you're providing for that problem or that tension. If you're a creative that is problem solving oriented, what you deliver will always have more worth than designing for the sake of design. You need to be innovative. What's the purpose of creating if you're not innovating? I think innovation is very important. If we do include innovation in every piece we craft, it elevates our work to a certain standard. And the next step is thinking outside of the box. Most people, from what I know, the left brain would be the most analytical and rational aspect of how we think, and the right brain has more of the creative components. And thinking in the box means we usually use more of our left brain than our right brain. But with the 20th and 21st century, what we've been exposed to, and the boom of the digital realm, we need to think way out of the box, because obviously everything gets saturated after a period of time. And to be able to create and innovate, you have to come up with ideas that haven't been already implemented. So that's what thinking outside of the box would mean. I would like to address divergent thinking and convergent thinking. Divergent thinking means coming up with multiple ideas. So, when it comes to creatives, we have divergent thinkers and we have convergent thinkers. Divergent ones are the people that come up with like a zillion ideas and just put it out there and just, so many concepts. From one topic, one route, they come up with like a million ideas. Convergent thinkers are able to filter through all those ideas, streamline, and come up with one solution to solve the problem. Okay, so whether you're a divergent thinker or a convergent thinker, usually it's also good to be able to collaborate with people that think the opposite way from what you think. So do a couple of exercises to see where you fit in, and then join forces with people that actually think the opposite way so that you can come up with the most innovative ideas out there. So those are the attributes of a valuable creative. And beyond that, let's look at the culture, the creative culture. All right, so we've looked at the creative process, we've addressed creative attributes that one should have, and now we want to address the culture. Creative culture is a lifestyle. It's as simple as that. If you want to be a creative, if you are a creative or you aspire to be a great creative, you need to integrate art into your routine. What does that mean? You need to feed off of art. You need to go out of your way to do research online. You need to attend events, relevant events. You need to engage in certain conversations. You need to create content that allows you to feed off of all the experiences. So, for instance, I make it a point to attend creativity related events that happen in Accra whenever I can. It's always good to see art from a different perspective. I make it a point to initiate conversations right here at Basecamp Initiative in the Hub that are possibly controversial conversations, but that open doors for building interesting content. And also, we've set up our hub in a very unusual leisure-like leisure/work environment kind of environment. And it allows us to feed off of each other's creativity. So you have to make it a point to integrate art into your lifestyle. You have to work with productivity. That's the next thing. We tend to procrastinate a lot. Creatives are very famous when it comes to procrastinating, and also back to timelines again. So when we speak about productivity, the idea here is to know yourself, know your weaknesses, know your strengths, so that you can do better and you can maximize on your strengths. You're the most productive when you're in an area that you're actually passionate about, and when you actually know the the obstacles you have in front of you, so that you can actually do away with them. I would say go on adventures to embrace the new. Don't stay in your bubble, don't stay in a corner. There's a lot out there to experience, not necessarily both outside of the country and inside the country. Put yourself in the midst of environments where you can learn from. Create opportunities for yourself. Don't wait for opportunities to come to you. Create them. Start conversations. Engage with the right people. Explore, network, and experience. I would like to repeat that. Explore, network, and experience. Be an observer. We tend to, put out so much energy and talk, and at times we don't know when it's time to actually pause and observe instead. It's very important to balance your how much energy you put out versus how much energy you take in. And when you're a creative, creatives tend to engage with other creatives a lot, and from one person to another, one person's light might shine more and another person's light might be dimmer. But at times it's very important to take a step back, to be reflective, and to be able to pick on opportunities that you wouldn't have seen should you be the one talking all the time. So observation is actually important. Embrace risk and do not be afraid to fail. There's nothing such as failure, in my opinion. It's about learning. You either succeed or you learn. Every time you fail, what we call failure today, it's a learning curve. So, risk gives you the courage to explore ideas, and should you not have been in a circumstance where, a risky circumstance, or in a circumstance where you failed, you wouldn't have been able to do better next time. So measure your threshold of risk, but embrace risk. Be a daydreamer. Daydreaming is very important. Allow your inner child to flourish. Trust me, there's nothing like daydreaming and exploring concepts that haven't been explored before. It might seem a bit crazy in the beginning, but once you allow yourself to just explore, you'll be able to tap in your consciousness and come up with very creative ideas. The last aspect of the creative culture is to create. It sounds very basic, but it's actually as important as the other steps. To create means to experiment with work, to fail, work, and to succeed. It's a process. You start by experimenting, you fail at times, and you reach success. So the key points here are to build a collection of knowledge and memories that help you seek new experiences, to become a more valuable creative, to try something new regularly, and to take a problem-solving approach every time you are tackling a brief. Generally, I would say when it comes to creative thinking or design thinking, you need to empathize with your audience. You need to define the problem properly. You need to develop a collection of ideas and fully flesh the concept. You need to create a prototype, then test the prototype for efficiency. So should you go through the different steps I addressed today, be it from the creative process or the attributes that you have to nurture in your routine, or the actual creative culture, in the end, the idea is to grow every step of the way. With growth comes a realm of opportunities, and also comes value. Thank you.